Hello and welcome. I'm Carolyn Grimminger with the Public Affairs Forum of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin. Our program's mission is to nourish the mind and spirit and serve social justice. Our forums occur on most Sundays at noon and are free and open to the public. We encourage you to attend. Our church is physically located at 4700 Grover Avenue in Austin, Texas. For more information about our church and future public affairs forums, you can go to our church website at www.austinuu.org. We really appreciate you coming out for this very timely topic today. I'm going to introduce our speakers. Nicole Golden is a founding member of the Texas chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. She stepped up as leader of the Austin group in 2013, shortly after the Sandy Hook shooting, which rocked her to the core and pushed her to get off the sidelines and fight to protect our children and communities from America's gun violence epidemic. Nicole led and grew the Austin group of Moms Demand Action until the summer of 2018. She continues to act as a local spokesperson for the organization while raising her 8 and 10-year-old sons. Nicole will present stats on gun violence in the United States, go over current proposed gun law nationally and statewide, share successes within the gun violence prevention community, and discuss where we go from here. Our second speaker is Diana Earl. Diana is a survivor engagement lead with the Texas chapter of Moms Demand Action and Everytown Survivor Fellow. She became an advocate for gun violence prevention shortly after her son Dedrick was shot and killed in November 2016. Since then, Diana has shared her story across the country and engaged other survivors. Diana has also been active in elections and was involved in many events with the Beto for Texas campaign. Diana shares her story in the hope that she can prevent other parents from experiencing the pain of losing a child to gun violence. Let's welcome our speakers.
Hi, thank you so much for having us here today. This is a pleasure. I've known about your church community for a very long time. I'm an Austinite for a while, and I'm very glad to be here, and I know this is a really great community that's really invested in what's going on around us. So thanks for having us and letting us share this topic with you. Well, my name's Nicole Golden, as Carolyn said, and I'm a longtime founding member of Moms Demand Action. We've been around for 6 years, and I've been around that long. And most of us are volunteers. I am, Diana is. We do this on our own time because we care about gun violence, and we have taken it upon ourselves to do something about that. And that's really, our movement is driven by that, by people like us, by people like you who aren't going to sit on the sidelines anymore, who have had enough. And we know that there's many ways that we can prevent gun violence, and the work that we're doing is step by step getting us there. So I'm hoping today to give you guys kind of a lay of the land and give you ideas for how you could be involved and how you can talk about this issue. And then I hope to see you at future events, and we have some very big ones. So I'm going to start with simply who we are. We are called Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. We started really as women and mothers standing up to end gun violence. We were devastated after the shooting at Sandy Hook. That's what sparked the start of our organization. We were founded by a mom, Shannon Watts. She actually started a Facebook page, and through that Facebook page, women and mothers and others came together, and we really grew what we have today, which is the largest gun violence prevention organization in the country. And but we are inclusive. We are mothers and others, fathers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, neighbors, educators, students, anybody who is concerned about this issue is welcome here. We include survivors of gun violence in our movement. We empower them to share their stories and be a core part of what we do. And of course, the pain that they've suffered drives what we do. We are a nonpartisan organization. We welcome people from all political backgrounds who are concerned about ending gun violence. We are supporters of the Second Amendment, and a number of folks who are involved in the movement are gun owners, and we welcome them. They have a powerful story to tell. they also are concerned about gun violence. They're concerned about responsible gun storage. And as gun owners, it's important to hear their voice. And lastly, we're volunteers, like I mentioned earlier. We're people who do this on our own time. Our job is to prevent gun violence. We respect the Second Amendment, and we believe that we can and must reduce the 33,000 gun deaths that happen every year in America. It's an astounding number. It's been a problem for a long time, and we're doing something about it through our work. We fight for a lot of reasons. I don't know if you're familiar with some of these statistics. I'm going to share some of the really big points with you on how much of an epidemic gun violence really is in America. On an average day, and by the way, my slide says 96, but that number unfortunately has climbed to 100 Americans killed every day with guns in this country. On average, there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides a year in the US. For every one person killed with guns, 2 more are injured. We must remember those that are injured. 62% of firearm deaths in the US are suicides. So we really include suicide prevention, suicide by gun in our message. 7 children and teens are killed with guns in the US on an average day. And what's not included up here, but I'm going to say, is that gun violence is now known to be the leading cause of death for Black children in this country. In an average month, 50 women are shot to death by intimate partners in the United States. Domestic gun violence is a huge issue, and it's very much a part of what we do. That chart there is going to be probably difficult for you to see, but it's a table showing gun homicides per 100,000 residents, and it's comparing other developed countries. We exceed gun homicides by 25 times our peer nations. So it really is, we are really the exception here in the United States, with all, other likenesses aside. Other countries have mentally ill residents. Other countries have suicidal people. Other countries have domestic violence, etc. But we are 25 times more likely to be killed here than in our peer nations. You hear a lot about the background check system. With the background check system that we do have, which does prohibit some folks from purchasing on a federal level across all states, over 3 million gun sales have already been stopped by that system. So that tells us that we know the background check system works, and if we strengthen it, it will prohibit even more people from buying guns that shouldn't have them. Another thing that we're very concerned about is Black men are 13 times more likely than white men to be shot and killed with guns. So that, taken with what I told you earlier about the risk for Black children, really shows us that there is a disproportionate effect in communities of color, and we need to be going into those communities, engaging survivors and people who live in those communities and empowering them to be a part of the movement in a way that feels right to them, and work together to stop this problem. And then that last little piece says the presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of the woman being killed by 5 times. So these are some of the reasons why we do what we do, why we must keep going. So what is the work that we do? How are we preventing gun violence? One big piece is our organization stands for closing the deadly loopholes in our background check system that gives felons, domestic abusers, and other dangerous people easy access to guns. And this is timely because you have probably heard that there is a piece of federal legislation right now in Congress which will seek to close those loopholes. We fully stand behind that. We're hoping with this new Congress perhaps we can make some headway. And we've been advocating for this for a long time. I know a lot of people often say, well, after Sandy Hook, why wasn't it passed? Why didn't they close the loopholes in the background check system then? Indeed, Congress has very much kind of been at a standstill on this issue. We still must pass a system that closes those loopholes and ensures there's a background check on every gun sale. In Texas, there is no background check needed on private gun sales. So that would mean online sales, gun show sales when the seller is not a federally licensed dealer. There is not a background check required. And there are other states, not just Texas, that are like that. Some states have closed their loopholes, and we have been a big player in making sure that that's happened. So, we think that we're going in the right direction. Oh, I apologize. Thank you for pointing that out. In states where a background check is required for every gun sale, we know that it works. We know it can save lives. 47% fewer women are shot to death by intimate partners in those states. 53% fewer law enforcement officers are killed by guns in those states. 47% fewer firearm suicides are seen, and 48% less interstate gun trafficking in cities. So all this is to say, you don't have to remember the numbers, ensuring that there is a background check on every gun sale works to save lives. We are an evidence-based organization, and we study this issue, and we fully stand behind that. Another big piece of the work we do is not just to pass legislation, but also to promote gun safety on a general level, so that America's children will no longer be exposed to unacceptable levels of risk due to unsecured firearms. So many of the unintentional shootings you see are because we're 100% preventable, because an adult often left a gun accessible to a child. And we know that there are millions, I think it's 3 to 5 million American children are living in homes with unsecured guns. So we are working to do something about that through a national conversation and through community education, and that is through our Be Smart program. We give presentations through PTAs and throughout the community to educate parents about safe gun storage, responsible gun storage, and not only in their own homes, but also in their cars, and at homes of family members, and at homes of friends, and play dates, and places where their children are going. And this is a wonderful program. Here's a little bit more about what Be Smart stands for. S, secure guns in homes and vehicles. M, model responsible behavior. A, ask about unsecured guns in other homes. R, recognize the risks of teen suicide. And T, tell your peers to be smart. Another big point that we work on is supporting reasonable limits on where, when, and how loaded guns are carried and used in public. We have, for a long time, opposed open carry laws. We have opposed campus carry laws. We've opposed other legislation that seeks to place guns in sensitive places where they do not belong. We oppose arming teachers. All of that work that we've done falls under that heading. We also support common sense, evidence-based public safety measures, and we provide a counterweight to the gun lobby on a state and federal level. And truly, we have provided really the strongest counterweight that the gun lobby has ever seen. We have about 5 million supporters nationwide. We have people on the ground constantly in state houses across the country and doing community events. And really, the gun lobby has never seen anything like us. And a final big piece of what we do is we advocate for corporate responsibility and culture change. So not only ensuring that we're having the conversation in our communities and that we're supporting good legislation and fighting bad legislation, but also encouraging corporate responsibility. We've had a lot of success with business owners creating policies that make sense for guns, not carrying guns on the premises, not allowing open carry on the premises. And through that, we've been changing the culture of the country. We also want to make sure that our organization is really working to foster a robust presence of diversity, equity, and inclusion of all individuals. We welcome everyone. Our purpose is to work together to decrease gun violence and increase public safety in everything that we do. And this is really something that we have been working very hard on, and we want to keep going in that direction. I want to make sure that you guys know that while gun violence is a heavy topic and it's upsetting, and we see a lot of tragedies that, you know, I know I've been put on the floor many times and I've cried many times. I want you to know that we are having so much success and so many wins, and you may not hear about these, so I want to make sure that you do. These are just some examples of some of the things that we've helped to pass or to block across the country. We have chapters in every state, so we're all doing this together. Things like in Kansas, we helped to pass a domestic violence prevention bill. In Maryland, another domestic violence prevention bill. We helped to pass major gun safety legislation in Florida recently. In Washington, we worked on banning bump stocks there. In New Jersey, we helped to pass a law to prohibit undetectable, untraceable, and disguised guns. In Oklahoma, we beat permitless carry. In Louisiana, we took on the gun lobby, and we protected domestic violence survivors. And I can't tell what state that is up there. But we are constantly on the ground helping to pass good legislation and helping to block bad legislation. And dozens of good gun bills have passed, and dozens of bad gun bills have been stopped because of the effort of our volunteers across the country. So while we may not be getting everything we want all at once, and it's taking time, and it's taking a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, little by little, we have absolutely been chipping away at the problem and absolutely been chipping away at the power of the gun lobby. These are some pictures of some of our local campaigns. This is one big thing that we do. We meet with lawmakers to talk about you know, our strength in numbers and what we want to see happen both on a local level, a state level, and a federal level. Federal legislative work, we attend town halls, and we meet with lawmakers to advocate for sensible gun laws. We're definitely going strong on that right now with the background check bill currently sitting in Congress. Moms Demand Action has been really actively working to pass that and to support that. And these are just some images of us attending those town halls, volunteers standing up and asking in public forums to lawmakers, you know, what are you doing about this? And it's a very powerful thing because then, you know, they're really accountable to their constituents that way. We're constantly keeping this topic alive in every political event across the country. These are some pictures of our wins in terms of culture change. Some of the major corporations that have adopted gun sense policies recently include Dick's, Tom's Shoes. There's some other images of you know, some of the work that we do. We're in Oprah magazine. We are changing culture through our efforts to encourage corporate responsibility on this issue. And I think that because we've been working so hard on this, we've given a lot of cover to business owners and corporate leaders who may not have wanted to put themselves out in front on this before. Now, because of our strength in numbers, we've kind of given them a chance to come out and adopt those policies publicly without fear of backlash, because they know that this is important to people, and they see the work that we're doing. Another very powerful way that we've made an impact, and this is really unprecedented, and I'm very excited about it, is that this last election cycle, we supported gun sense candidates. That's something that hadn't really been done. You may know that the gun lobby for a long time has kind of been rating candidates. The NRA has a rating system, and we came up essentially with our own. It's less of an endorsement and more of a way for candidates to apply for this special distinction of a Moms Demand Action gun sense candidate, they had to show that they had a strong platform that matched our goals in terms of adopting gun sense policies. And if they matched that, they were able to receive the distinction. And then they could proudly share that badge. As many of them did, you can see pictures of folks with the little emblem, and they're very proud. And then if they were considered a gun sense candidate, our volunteers were able to volunteer on their campaigns. And it was very powerful. And I just really want to make sure you all know that when I first started doing this 6 years ago, candidates, even who agreed with us, were often really quiet about it. They didn't want to, they didn't want to face the backlash if they stood up for gun violence prevention or gun sense publicly. And now we have this. So there's been a huge turning of the tide. People know this is an issue that their constituents care about. They know it's an issue people are voting on. For many people, it's their #1 voting issue. And so many people ran with gun violence prevention as one of their top platform pieces. So we are very proud, and I think this Gun Sense candidate program is going to continue on to do amazing things. We saw a lot of them elected. I don't know if you're familiar with Lucy McBath. She's a gun violence survivor. Her only son, Jordan, was killed. His case is sometimes referred to as the loud music case. And she became an advocate with Moms Demand Action and a spokesperson, ran in Georgia for Congress, and she won. It's really, it still gives me goosebumps, and it's really remarkable. And she was not the only one. There are so many more. We really saw a gun sense majority win in the House. These are some folks who were gun sense candidates who won seats. This happened both on a state level and a federal level. And as you saw, one of the first items of business in Congress was to try to address our our background check system and the loopholes. So they're keeping their promise. You probably want to know what's happening here in Texas, and we're getting into the full swing of legislative session 2019 here. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our priorities, what we're going to be doing, and how you could help. This is, you see a fun picture here of us attending a hearing in Texas. We have divided up our priorities for 2019 here in this state into 4 different areas. We're going to be on the offensive in terms of trying to pass a good red flag law. I'm going to tell you what that is in a minute. And promoting responsible gun storage. A red flag law, if you haven't heard about it, sometimes also referred to as an extreme risk protective order, essentially would allow loved ones of someone who owns guns, who is displaying very concerning behaviors, maybe making threats, maybe seeming extremely unstable and threatening violence, to work with law enforcement and go through a due process phase to try to have those guns removed before something terrible happens. Red flag laws have been passed in some states recently. They've shown to be successful in some of those states, certainly in terms of reducing suicide. And I think we're going to see, as these laws stand for a while and they're able to be studied over a period of time, I think we're going to see that they're going to be very successful. So we're hoping to pass that here in Texas. The responsible gun storage fairly speaks for itself. We're going to be looking at legislation that comes along. And by the way, a couple of red flag laws have been filed in the Texas legislature. So we're looking carefully at those and making sure they hit on the points that we think are really important, such as due process, and making sure that they really are going to be protective of our communities. Responsible gun storage is something that we're looking at legislation-wise, and also maybe in terms of public awareness campaigns. So there's been some talk in the legislature of some gun storage-related bills being filed, and we're looking carefully at those. We're also going to be on the defensive. That happens here in Texas. We have to be able to keep some of the really egregious legislation from passing. One thing we're very concerned about is the push to arm teachers. We've heard a little bit of talk from our leaders in Texas about, talking about hardening our schools, arming teachers, and we fundamentally oppose that. We're attending board meetings across different school districts in Texas to kind of keep our ear to the ground, what's being said, and making sure that volunteers are there to speak up and say, as a parent or as an educator, I'm concerned about this. And we're looking at the legislation coming through and the bills that are filed that might seek to arm more teachers across the state. And we also are fighting what we call permitless carry. You may hear it referred to as constitutional carry. We call it permitless carry because that's essentially what it is. It's a bill that's been filed this session. It was also filed last time. And it essentially seeks to dismantle the permitting system that would require someone to get a permit and go through some gun safety training and live fire training before they're able to carry concealed, hidden, loaded guns in public. This legislation seeks to strip that away. And Texas does a really good job as it is. Texas has a pretty strong permitting system, and we want to keep it that way. So we're going to be definitely voicing our opposition to that legislation. These are just some dates that don't only apply to the work that we do, but I thought it would be good to share that in general, things that you want to be looking at, kind of how the process, what happens during the legislative session, what are the big dates to keep in mind. The bills were already began to be filed in November. They're continuing to be filed and amended all throughout the session. Things can constantly change. Session started January 8th. Our big advocacy day, which I'm going to hit on more in a minute, is actually this Wednesday, February 13th. And I'm going to plug that, and I really hope that you guys can go. This is like the biggest thing we do all session. We're expecting hundreds to show up. The last day to file bills is March 8th, and then things really wrap up on May 27th at the session. So, we're going to see a lot of ups and downs and things changing. We're going to be updating folks, and I'll make sure to get you guys on our list so you can be updated too. These are some images of us at last session, 2017, and the really big image is us at our advocacy day that day. We had about 215 people show up, which was an almost 100% increase from our attendance in 2015. So it was incredibly remarkable, and really this hadn't been done before. This kind of showing of Texans standing up for gun sense policies, really, this was historical. These are some of, we attended every hearing. We have some survivors that you can see here holding pictures of loved ones that attended with us. And through these efforts of going to every hearing and making sure that we had a huge amount of people show up, we beat permitless carry in the 2017 legislative session. We know it can be done, and we think we're going to double that number this year. Our advocacy day, as I mentioned, is Wednesday. It starts at 9 a.m., and you can sign up even through your phone. If you text events to 64433, that's 64433, then you're going to be asked to put in your zip code, and you can see all the events taking place in the area, and this is one that you're going to be able to sign up for just really easily. And then also if you do that text, then you'll be in our system for the future for other events. We're going to meet at 9 a.m. We should wrap up about 2 p.m. Like I said, we're really hoping to double the numbers that we had in 2017. We really need to let folks at the Capitol know how strongly we feel about gun sense policies in Texas. And we need all of you, and we need you to tell everybody that you know. You don't have to stay the whole day. You can come for whatever parts that you can. We're going to be breaking up into groups, going to every lawmaker's office. We're going to start with a rally and then go to the Capitol. And I really hope that you can make it. I have a few other pictures of some of the other things that we do throughout the year. June 2nd is National Gun Violence Awareness Day. This was a previous event that we had, and every year on that day, we honor the birthday of Hadia Pendleton. She's a teen who was murdered in Chicago, and we honor her and her family and friends who started this by gathering people, giving survivors the chance to share their stories, and having events all throughout the country. That is my part, and I'm going to be available for questions later, but I'd really like to pass on the mic to my friend and fellow advocate, Diana Earl, and she's going to talk to you about her story and the work that she does.
Hello, everyone. I am Diana Earl. I'm the local and state engagement lead and membership lead for survivors in Texas, as well as in Austin. I am also a 2018 Survivor Fellow with Everytown for Gun Safety. I joined this movement with Moms and Men Action at Everytown for Gun Safety after the November 2016 tragic death of my only child, Dedrick. My son was shot and killed following an argument with a friend's upstairs neighbor. My son went to a friend's house one afternoon, approximately around lunchtime, and he was shot and killed following an argument with a friend's upstairs neighbor about ashes that were on the man's car. The killer was hell-bent on killing someone that day based off of his anger and repeated threats of violence toward my son and his friend. He claimed he got off of work that morning and he was tired and he was exhausted and that he was remorseful. That altercation started between my son's friend and the upstairs neighbor first. My son happened to just get over there and he was trying to defuse that situation, and it made the shooter escalate it even more. The killer spent the entire time in jail for nearly 2 years up until trial, in which they changed their position to self-defense prior to trial, and he got off, and that's how simple that was. So January 2017 is the 2 months after my son's death, is why I joined Moms and Men Action in Everytown to try to find ways to reduce gun violence in America. Being a gun violence survivor, I was placed in the Everytown Survivor Network. The Everytown Survivor Network is the nation's leading advocacy organization for Americans who have been personally affected by gun violence. And the network brings together loved ones of victims and those who have been wounded or witnessed gun violence to advocate for common sense policies that can save lives here in America. The network partners with survivors by connecting them to build communities of change and training them to be advocates and leaders such as myself. It is a powerful experience to meet and share our personal stories and advocate alongside other survivors that gives us the strength that we didn't know we had. And I'm grateful for this network. This network empowers so many of us survivors to share our stories, to honor the lives of those who have been affected by gun violence. And as far as all Americans to join this movement to end this gun violence in America. The Everytown Survivor Network is inclusive of anyone who has personally experienced gun violence, whether you have witnessed an act of gun violence, been threatened or wounded with a gun, or know someone you care for that was wounded or killed with a gun. My son was my only child, and he was just like me. He's the type of person who likes to pull people out of dangerous situations. He saw me do it all the time. I've always been the type of person to go out and protect everybody and everything, and that's exactly what my son was doing that day when he was murdered. And I share my personal story and talk about common sense bill legislation, not because I have a lot of time on my hands. It's because I experienced the worst tragedy there is for a parent to have to experience. It is important to get our message out there. They need to see who we are and what we have experienced. And we are here to bring truth to power, and that's how we honor with action. As Nicole was mentioning to you all, I've volunteered with the Beto O'Rourke campaign. I was a part of his campaign for about 11 months up until the legislation. We're still closely connected. It gave me an opportunity to talk with members throughout the state of Texas about my position and why I support Beto O'Rourke. Gun violence in America is a national crisis, but we cannot get our lawmakers to talk about that. In one of the latest studies, nearly 40,000 people died in gun-related deaths within the past couple of years, within the past year, I believe. And the economic cost of gun violence continuously rises at approximately $200 billion a year. And death by firearms consists of suicides, urban gun violence, domestic violence, kids and guns, and unintentional deaths and shootings. I was part of the H.R. 8 Background Checks Expansion Act that was introduced January 8, 2019 in Washington, D.C. I was there for 2 days as I saw the bill being signed. It was a grateful experience to be there. Over 90% of gun owners support background checks. Over 90% of people support background checks. The only thing that is stopping this is political action, and that's why we need to pass background checks to make sure we close those dangerous loopholes. Currently, in our background check system, they have 3 days to approve or disapprove of the background of the person that's applying. If there is anything that's questionable and it does not get solved within 3 days, it automatically defaults and that person gets access to that gun. There's so many loopholes in our system that we do need to close, and H.R. 8, we're pushing for that, and we are very positive that it's going to pass. And this is reasons why I honor my son, the 100 lives a day that are lost by gun violence. And that number continues to rise, because when I joined the organization, I believe it was around 93 people a day that were dying by gun violence. Now it's approximately 100, and it doesn't make any sense. We have to do something. It's a national crisis, it's a national tragedy, and we need to take action. Thank you.
I have a fun video, take just a minute to show you guys, that celebrates we celebrated our 5-year anniversary of Moms Demand Action last year, and I really want you to see this because I think it shows, it's very uplifting, it shows the work that we do, and I think you're going to enjoy it before we have our...
Think about the times gun violence made you feel hopeless.
Surge in gun sales.
Nearly enough has
That nothing could be done.
Gun laws in
Will this time be different?
Got it? Now, watch us work.
You think the gun lobby's strong? You don't know moms.
These volunteers kept the pressure on until their state reps finally decided to keep guns out of schools and away from domestic abusers.
Have guns. Yeah, we did that.
In Texas, Nori convinced hundreds of businesses to post signs keeping guns out of their stores.
Is that something you're familiar with?
Solange rallied her community behind responsible gun ownership, living room by living room by living room.
Sí, lo hice.
In Pennsylvania, Jen knocked on hundreds of doors with her daughter. Hundreds. And got elected to office, where she'll fight for gun safety.
And it was my first time running for anything.
Melody visited churches, synagogues, and mosques across the South.
Listen to us.
Uniting people behind the cause.
On our behalf. You feeling us yet?
And it's not just these women. In the last 5 years, Americans from all walks of life have stood with moms, dads, and gun violence survivors to stop hundreds of dangerous gun bills and pass dozens of common-sense laws that will save lives. They've elected gun safety advocates from coast to coast, convinced thousands of businesses across the country to adopt gun sense policies, crossed cultural barriers, and stood with survivors to turn their grief into action.
Yeah, we've been busy.
And no, we're not giving up.
Y tú tampoco.
No matter what it takes.
Keep going.
I love that video. I know you love that video too. Oh, what is this? There we go. We'll get out of that. I think you saw at the end of that video, it tells you to text READY to 64433. I also told you you could text events to 64433 to see events. You should do either one of those to make sure that you stay with us. I don't know how to get out of here. Keep on our list. Keep up with what we're doing. Go to a future monthly meeting. Go to Advocacy Day on Wednesday. Spread the word. We really need you. Just close the lid. That's a good idea. Wow. Oh, Diana's telling me you can also text survivors to 64433, that same number. If you are a survivor of gun violence, if you know someone who is, please pass that on, and then they can be connected to the Everytown Survivor Network. Gave you a lot to think about. I'd love to answer questions. Diana and I both are available for that, so please.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to kind of digress just a bit, if you don't mind. I was in the UK many years ago. I was in a bar. My daughter went up to get a drink, and I was next to this guy, and we got to talking. And this is what he said. We in the UK do not understand your country's fascination with guns. I don't even know how I answered him, but I think I might know now. Why are we fascinated with guns? Now, another thing I want to say is, I personally think the framers were wrong. You did not have to have that amendment saying you have, however it reads, that Second Amendment, you know the one I'm talking about. If you want to own a gun and you can qualify and you need one, fine. I certainly do not need a gun in a very close-knit neighborhood like I am. And if I feel threatened at any point and feel that I need a gun, I will move to Canada, where they have very strong gun laws. So if you would remark on, first of all, the Second Amendment and why we are fascinated with guns.
Do you want me to answer? Yeah, I think we'll both answer this. I always like to tell people that we are not against the Second Amendment. We are for the amendment, and we follow the Constitution. It's really hard to say why people are fascinated. One of the my own personal reason, I think, is a lot of toxicity, you know, with certain types of people, and usually having a gun gives them strength and power. But I just honestly, I don't know why, you know, but we're not against the Second Amendment at all.
I can, first of all, I understand your anger and your upset, because that's why I got involved, right? I mean, there's not words to describe how I felt after the shooting at Sandy Hook when my kids were little. And I thought, I cannot believe I haven't been doing something about this. I literally couldn't believe I hadn't been doing something about it. So I started to do something about it. And I really went in at the time thinking, we're gonna get this done. Like, we're just gonna go in, we're just gonna do this, right? Like, we're gonna pass everything, we're gonna get this done. And I realized over the 6 years that I've done this, that change happens incrementally. It's not something we wanna sometimes admit because it's a crisis and we wanna do something right now. But change is incremental when it's a monumental crisis like this that's been going on for a long time, and that is what it is. The gun lobby has had a power over our culture and a power over our lawmakers, and really has had them, beholden to them for a very long time through money and through having a system that has really worked for them to keep people in office and keep them quiet on this issue. You don't turn something like that around quickly. And as I mentioned earlier, with all the wins we've had, we're chipping away. We're chipping away. But we aren't chipping away at trying to repeal the Second Amendment, because we are an organization that uses evidence-based facts to do what we think is possible. And that is not one of our goals. We also know that there are many gun owners who stand with us, who stand behind us. And we want them, we need their voice, and they can bring on so many others out there who have maybe stayed quiet, but who really believe in what we do. And little by little, we're seeing those people join in the effort. So, we're passing what we think is sensible, and we're passing laws that can save lives. But it's not going to happen overnight. And the gun lobby is a powerful force, but we are truly providing a counterweight through the work that we're doing.
But why does the gun lobby why do they have that much power?
I'm not a political expert, so I don't want to say things that I think someone else could say better, but through the way that our political system is set up is lobbies can, through really money, can have a great deal of sway over what our lawmakers do. And that could probably open up a whole can of worms about problems in our system that allows that. But that's essentially what's happened. They've gone unchecked for a long time and put in a lot of money into what they do. But really, if you look at the membership we have about 5 million supporters nationwide. We were really catching up with them in terms of our supporters and electing gun sense candidates, but it's not going to happen overnight. We just need to keep moving in that direction. And we need to keep working in the states, too, to make sure that even if federally we are kind of at a standstill, that we can still do so much work in the states. And we've absolutely proven that that's possible. Yes?
Thank you. I'm interested. I will say one thing on what's happened. I believe there's a cultural and historical perspective over the last several generations that's made the difference. That's another long story. Just one specific question, though. What about the reciprocal licensing, race to the bottom or least restrictive situation we have? Are you involved in that issue?
Are you talking about concealed carry reciprocity?
Yes, the general reciprocity, where one could come from a state that has essentially very weak laws,
yes,
go to another state that has very strong laws, but the reciprocity would let the weak state dominate.
That concealed carry reciprocity was something we fought very hard against in the spring. It hasn't passed. It's still something that we look very carefully at. We fundamentally oppose that, and yes, we drove a lot of calls and a lot of meetings in opposition to concealed carry reciprocity. It really puts things kind of at the lowest common denominator standard, and that's unacceptable. Yeah, and it weakens the strong standards that some states have, and really, Texas actually isn't doing too badly with our permitting system and our standards. We want to keep it that way.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you're doing to save lives. It's really wonderful. What do you want your message here? It's going to go out over the TV and here among us. What do you want people to do to help you in this important work?
You can text JOIN or READY to 64433 and get connected to us, and or you can text events and you can show up at events to 64433. But we definitely need a lot of boots on the ground. We need people to be involved with politics, because that's where those are the ones who are going to be passing bills, and we definitely get involved with campaigns and stay involved in the political process throughout the year and not during the elections. We need to stay informed about what's going on and who we have in office, and remember that they work for us, we don't work for them. So let's just try to stay focused on politics, possibly 24/7. I stay involved 24/7. Which is too much, but just stay involved and pay attention to what's going on in America. And post-Parkland, we've gotten a lot of movement since post-Parkland, because people started to realize, like, no, this is it. It's time for me to act. And anytime we talk about it, we know it's too late. So we should have talked about it yesteryear. But I'm grateful. It's very sad, but I'm grateful that Parkland, these are young students that have to step up and demand action, because as a grown-up, we should have done this a long time ago. So definitely just take action. That's how we all get started.
Yeah, just to echo what Diana said, we need you to show up, and we need you to tell your friends to show up, and put it in newsletters, and put it in your community postings, and whatever you can do, that there's a growing movement here, and we need you to come to Advocacy Day at the Capitol, and we need those numbers. We need people then throughout the session to be able to attend hearings. We get about 48 hours notice for a hearing taking place on a bill that we're looking at. So we're kind of developing a list of like a rapid response team almost, and you can come talk to us afterwards. We can get you on the list there. We want to fill rooms with folks in our red shirts to show, what we stand for and that we have so many people behind us. We need presenters for our Be Smart program, people who are comfortable going and educating the community about responsible gun storage. Any connections you have with that would be great. Tell your networks about our upcoming meetings. Get other people involved. Those are some ways that you really could help us out.
Hi. I think it should be illegal for gun owners to shoot people. I think that before they pull the trigger, they should dial 911 and let the police do the shooting.
And this is certainly why we work so hard to keep guns out of the wrong hands, out of the hands of people that have shown to be dangerous, because that's absolutely one way that we can prevent.
And to add to that, police are trained to de-escalate situations where they don't have to shoot. Not everyday gun owners know how to de-escalate, and think about it, it's a split second to have to make a decision if it's your life or that person's life, but they are trained to de-escalate situations, and that's why I'm against arming teachers, because they aren't trained military style or police style on how to de-escalate situations, because we know a person of color will probably be one of the main people that are shot because of whatever's going on of their behavior or the thought that they're black and that black people are aggressive, generally aggressive. And and that's why we have a rise in gun deaths now. But not everybody is trained in de-escalation techniques, and they should be.
I'm wondering, I know that you're a bipartisan organization and are a fact-based organization. I'm wondering if you are having any luck with any Republican lawmakers, and I don't know if you're comfortable answering that question, but it's just something I think about a lot.
Oh, I think that's a great question. With the Gun Sense candidate distinction that I mentioned earlier was absolutely available to anybody running. We really encourage anybody from any party to apply for that distinction if they planned on passing sensible gun laws in office. And I, possibly not here in Texas, there might have been one, but across the country there were some. The numbers could be higher, and we'd like that to continue. We'd really like to keep offering that to people from all political parties and encouraging them to stand up. And again, it's a process of chipping away, right? Yeah.
And we are nonpartisan, so we don't support Democrat or Republican. Yes. So, and we communicate with Republicans, and a lot of them are on our side. And, it's about having a conversation, going across the aisle and having that conversation, because Republicans do agree with background checks. We just have to keep the NRA out of the pockets of our politicians, because the NRA is not our government, they are not our president, and if politicians continue to accept money from the NRA to push their dangerous policies, we're going to vote them out.
I have a question.
We're on the same page, yeah.
Okay.
I have a question about the red flag laws you were speaking about.
Yeah.
So how would we as citizens, if we're concerned about somebody, how would you activate that?
Well, in Texas, we don't have a red flag law yet. We hope to. And like I said, we're going to be pushing. There's been a couple filed in Texas. It's going to go state by state. So we're hoping we could push one forward, a good one. Maybe not this session, maybe another session, but that's definitely gaining traction across the country to be passing these in states.
So the situation would be like a person you could be concerned about hurting themselves or others.
Absolutely. A lot of people who are suicidal or who commit shootings have shown some red flag behaviors, right? And they've often made threats and said concerning things. So
Even in social media and things like that.
social media, to their family and friends. A lot of people close to them have heard some of this and just not known what it is that they could do. A red flag law would allow them to contact law enforcement and to have those guns removed, to go before a judge, so this whole process is overseen in a completely legal fashion, and have them removed and get that person some help.
So there are bills currently in front of our legislators.
In Texas, a couple have been filed that are
I would
red
be
flag.
personally interested in going to those hearings.
Yes, we are absolutely planning on going to those hearings. When we know that they take place, if you're on our list, we will update you.
Excellent.
Did you want to say anything?
I'm thinking that we have judges now that are passing orders to have guns removed from the home in domestic violence situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, domestic violence laws are kind of their own thing. The red flag law would apply to a lot of the gray area where someone hasn't been convicted of something, and maybe they aren't necessarily mentally ill. They may not have a mental illness that's been, given a diagnosis, but because of the red flag behaviors or statements being made, that would constitute a removal, perhaps a temporary removal, in order for them to get some help.
Okay. We have time for one more quick question.
I'll make it quick. Why is it so hard to get strict gun control laws when you go to buy a gun? Apparently you can go to a gun show and get them. That would be your start. Why is it so hard to get strict questions or background checks?
I think it kind of relates to the question that you asked earlier, which is that for years the gun lobby has really just blocked any effort on the part of lawmakers to try to move in the right direction of sensible gun laws, and anything that suggested that we close loopholes or anything that suggested, that we put more checks on the system, they've opposed. And too many in Congress have gone with that order. But our volunteers have helped in their states those background check loopholes be closed. And so I think state by state, we're going to keep seeing things move in that direction. And on a federal level, ultimately, I think we'll get there. I think we'll get there and make sure that there's a background check on every gun sale.
Definitely follow H.R. 8 bill. You'll get all your information from there. That is the one that's planning on closing all the loopholes, and that include the gun shows. So definitely follow H.R. 8.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much for your helpful presentation today.